All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about what this is and what it is not. First of all, I'm working on a almost non-existent budget. We, my wife is paying all the bills, and what I make off of YouTube goes back into YouTube. So I'm using the money that I make from this channel to build content for this channel. Essentially, it's a small business that I am building up into something that can eventually contribute to our household. Now, as far as this build goes, I'm working with equipment that I've had for a while. Driving a truck, you get that truck driver money, and it's pretty good, you know. So I was able to buy a lot of crap that I didn't need, and that stuff's just hanging out here. So I've got some equipment that I can use to do builds with. What I don't have is a lot of money to go to the store and buy things. So the stuff that I'm using throughout the build is all recycled from other parts of other builds. And I just keep reusing this equipment because I have it, it works, and I don't have the money to go buy new stuff. Make sense? Having said that, there are elements that are difficult to reuse. For example, construction. When you build a box or build a wall or build anything like that, that stuff you have a hard time reusing that stuff because it is the thing. You know, it's very custom. It's all glued and screwed and cut, and it just doesn't recycle. Okay. So what I'm using in this build is mostly recycled from other build that another guy did. For example, this box, I'll show you guys some pictures of what it was in before I got it. He used it in that build, and it is really, really pretty, beautiful build. And when he rebuilt everything, another friend of mine ended up with the box, and then he's like, "Hey man, I got a cool box. You want it?" And I said, "Sure." So I got it for free. The lumber that I'm using to build the base the box sets on was all packing material from my next door business neighbor over there. They did a remodel on that whole building, and the crates and packing material they used to pack the roofing stuff, the big long roofing stuff, all that packing material was wooden. So I got some of that, and I used it to build the frame. I also used it to build the top for the table that I use outside for my workbench. That table was part of a glass desk that was thrown out by another neighbor that I picked up that frame. Then I used the scrap lumber to build the top for it, so I had a table to work on outside. All the stuff that I'm using, as much as possible, is scrap. It's trash. Literally being thrown away by somebody else, then I repurposed it into something. All the wiring that I'm going to be using is all wiring that I've used in multiple builds or some scrap that I had left over from builds. Everything is recycled. So now on to the next part of that. Okay, so the way this is put together, you got your box sitting in here, and obviously this box was not built to fit these dimensions. And in the original build, it was built to fit 99%, and then the rest of that was just a little bit of trim. Essentially, on the original build, you had another piece that went on top of this whole piece and added about another inch or so of thickness to this whole front. It was a fascia piece, and the port was in, and then the face piece was put on top to cover the flange of the port and right up to the drivers. It was really nice, looked really clean. But in my situation, I'm not able to do that. So you'll notice that there's very little piece of material right here, and that's an issue on both sides. There's not much up here. So if you want to put a piece to come up here to be able to do this roof to connect to this piece, it needs to go on the front so it can get the access to all this surface to be attached, right? The problem with that is, number one, it's going to require a big old piece of material. Number two, it requires a router. You got to put the material on, you got to cut it to fit to where it fits everything, following the contours, and then you got to plunge a router into it and route out all your speaker holes, which would be great if you've got a router, the right bit, a good router, mind you, and the right bit, and you got the strength and balance and practice to do this vertical routing job. I don't have any of that stuff. So what am I going to do? Well, I've been studying on that quite a bit. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is piecemeal it together. So here's my plan. I'm going to peel back this carpet up on top. There's a little bit of carpet up here. I'm going to get rid of this. And this top piece, I'm going to create, probably will come straight up. Let's see. I ain't sure exactly how I'm going to end each piece, but I'm going to make a top piece that's going to attach to the top. I'm going to use a screw here and a screw on the other side in the same location, coming up through the material into this top piece. And it's going to get glued all the way across with a screw and a screw. And I'll probably create a brace that can sit up on top and also glue down too. When I put this whole piece on, it will glue down to come up behind this piece to give it a little extra more rigidity. And it's going to be a thick piece of wood. And it's going to be a wing that comes glued on edge up. Same thing on the sides. I'm going to glue it on the edge, and I'll probably be able to reach in here and put and attach it from the back. I got quite a bit of room on the sides, so I'll be able to slip around in here and get some screws into a bracket or a block that I'll have to attach it with. But it's going to have a wing that'll come over here somewhere and contour this. Same with the other side. Once I get that done, it'll have a solid, the whole thing will be a solid chunk that follows the contours of the vehicle. Then my plan is to probably, I haven't 100%ed this yet, but probably going to get a piece of Luan and like a 1/4 inch. It's a 1/4 inch piece of finished plywood. That's what Luan is, and cut it to fit the whole thing, and then get my buddy to run it with a plunge router and route out the Luan. That's the idea. But getting all these pieces cut to fit to give it structure, I want to glue it, screw it, so that I can build up really good structure around it, and then the Luan will simply be able to create a finished look on the outside. That's the plan as it is in my head right now. Now, as far as my electrical goes, you can see that I've got the two blue wires right there. Those are 2 power wires coming from the front of the vehicle going to the back. That's going to be charging the back bank. That's what that's for. And of course, there's 2 fuses right there. Now, those 2 power wires come back, go under a little space that I made under this frame, and come back to this capacitor. And they're attached right here, power wires. These are the grounds. They're attached to a bolt that goes through the body right here and attached to the body. So I got solid ground coming up from the body right here. I'm going to have a lithium battery back here from Trunk Thunder Lithium. It's going to be handling the storage for this capacitor lithium combo hybrid setup. In the future, we're going to have another lithium battery coming back as well. Both of those are going to be back here doing work together with my capacitor. So I haven't exactly figured out how this is laying out yet. I may end up putting some coverage over this whole thing. I may end up just covering parts of it. But the electrical is what we're talking about, not the cosmetics. I will have the amps mounted back here somewhere, all of them. My DSP is mounted over in this corner behind that panel, and that may end up staying there with the wires coming out this little hole right here, or it may end up getting mounted on the beauty panel. I don't know yet. I'm still up in the air on that. But that's where the electrical is and the back. Let's talk about the electrical and the front. Now, these are the two wires, these two blue wires are the ones that go back there to what's going to be the bank in the back. And of course, they come up here, go through two fuses, which are not in right now, and then run over here and connect to this alternator and to that alternator. But I have some interesting, when I designed this whole setup and put this in and wired it, I wired it with some abilities to change things on the fly. So if I take these two wires right here that connect these two alternators, if I take those two out, the system separates. So if those two wires are not there, this alternator, its output, as you can see, this doesn't connect. Its output only runs to these two wires that go to the back. It does not have a connection at all to the rest of the electrical system. So I can, by removing these two wires, separate these two alternators. This one can charge just for the Tahoe. This one would charge just for the stereo. I can also disconnect one wire from here and another wire from there and create two wires, run them to a breaker, and then have a switch that can turn on a connection and turn the connection back off. So I can go from one to the other. So there's lots of options here. I can leave AGM in the front and run it separately from the system in the back, or I can delete the AGM in the front and just run on the lithium bank, leaving these all together. There's all kinds of options. I made sure when I wired it originally that I did it in such a way that I could change that very, very easily. So yeah, in a couple of minutes I can have those bolts out, tighten them back down with those wires out, and the two systems are separate. Pretty cool, right? Oh, and if you're wondering how, this green wire here runs over here and connects to this alternator. So, and this alternator also has a connection that goes over to that battery on the other side. So this, like I said, this can run the whole Tahoe, and this can be totally isolated and just run the rear bank. Pretty cool, right? So at this point, you're probably thinking, well, that's how I would run it. I would have them separated. That's cool. And yeah, I agree. But keep in mind that the gray alternator you're looking at is an upgraded alternator. It's a 300 amp alternator. And the green one's a 370. So by putting them both in the whole system, I'm able to produce 670 amps of charging to the back. Whereas if I separate them, I'm only putting 370 amps maximum charging to the back. And I'm kind of letting the 300 amp alternator just do nothing. You see how there's a thing, right? But that is important because the lithium battery that I'm getting has an inrush current limit of, I think, So by reducing it to one alternator, I'll be inside that inrush current limit safely. The outrush current on it is like 1,000 amps. For a sustained time, it's like, for like 30 seconds, it's like 600 amps or something like that. So pretty much it's going to be able to keep up with the amplifier. With the charging and the dynamicness of music, it should work just fine. In case you're wondering, it's going to be the Lil Banger 10K from Trunk Thunder Lithium. That's on the way. It should be here Thursday. So there, that's the bones of what I'm doing. I didn't want anybody to be confused about anything. So I'm just getting all the details out there. You guys will be able to understand exactly why, how, and all that stuff. This isn't a big money build. It may, it kind of is, but it's only because I have all the stuff already. So right now, in material for this build, aside from the stuff that I already own, the material for this build so far is like $18. Not bad, right? But I'm gonna have to buy some glue. I need to buy some 9-wire. I need to buy some longer screws, maybe. Oddball stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to keep all that crap under $100. We'll see. Anyway, now you know what's up. If you guys are enjoying my series, I know today I didn't show you any build, but today I wanted to talk about it. I'm waiting on some stuff to get here today, so I can't run off and go get the stuff I need to be building. I can't go do the other stuff, so I'm kind of stuck in limbo. If you guys are enjoying it, please hit that subscribe button down below. That means everything to me because that supports my channel, and that's a huge thing for me. It don't cost you anything to click that button, but it helps me a lot. So keep that in mind. If you want to help with my finances, that would be very cool. You can go down to the Patreon down below, click on the Patreon thing, and you can donate, you know, stuff. You can also be a channel member. You can donate that way. That's cool. Monthly thing saying, hey, I enjoy this content. I'm willing to, you know, toss you a couple of pennies every month. Great. Or you can do a one-time donation. I don't care. I hardly ever talk about this crap because I don't like being a beggar. So I'm not begging. I'm just telling you, if you are interested in doing this and you want to know how you can help, that's how, okay? Like, subscribe, share, comment, interact. All those interactions help push me up the YouTube algorithm, which means more money for me. And there's that. Anyway, guys, I appreciate your time and your honesty and your interactions, your comments. And I hope you have a wonderful day.